the clock that stopped time. In a quiet village, nestled between misty hills and dense forests, lived an old clockmaker named Thomas. His shop sat on the corner of the cobblestone square, its windows lined with clocks of every shape and size. Inside, the ticking of time echoed from wall to wall, a symphony of mechanisms that never ceased. There were wooden clocks with carved cuckoos, large brass clocks with pendulums, and delicate pocket watches with ornate engravings. But among them all, hidden in the shadows of a dusty glass case, was a clock that no one ever asked about, a golden pocket watch, worn with age but gleaming with an almost magical glow. The watch, unlike the others, was not for sale. It had been there for as long as anyone could remember, and Thomas never spoke of it. The villagers, though curious, had learned not to question the old man's silence. He was a kind, if somewhat mysterious figure, and his clocks were unmatched in craftsmanship. Yet the golden pocket watch remained untouched, its secrets buried in time. One stormy evening, as lightning cracked the sky and rain battered the windows, a young boy named Daniel sought refuge in Thomas's shop. The doorbell jingled as he stepped inside, soaked from the storm and shivering from the cold. The warm glow of the shop's oil lamps and the steady ticking of the clocks made the space feel oddly comforting. Daniel was a curious boy, always drawn to things that others overlooked. He wandered through the shop, his eyes wide with wonder as he admired the many clocks, but it was the golden pocket watch that caught his attention. It sat alone in its case, gleaming faintly in the dim light, as if calling to him. He leaned closer, peering at the intricate symbols carved into its surface, symbols he didn't recognize, but which filled him with a sense of awe. "What's this one?" Daniel asked, pointing at the watch. Thomas, who had been tinkering with a clock behind the counter, looked up. His expression shifted from mild annoyance to one of grave concern. Slowly, he stood and walked over to where Daniel stood. "That's not for you," Thomas said quietly, his voice stern but calm. "But why not?" "It's just a watch," Daniel insisted, his curiosity burning. Thomas sighed and motioned for Daniel to sit. "It's no ordinary watch," he began, his voice softening while asked. "This watch was crafted long ago by a sorcerer who had unlocked the secrets of time itself. It has the power to stop time, to freeze the world in place, but only for the one who holds it. However," Thomas hesitated, "such power comes at a cost." Daniel's eyes widened with excitement and fear. "What kind of cost?" "The more you use the watch," Thomas explained, "the more it drains your life. It feeds on your time. The sorcerer who created it thought he could cheat death, but in the end, he vanished, lost to the very time he tried to control." A chill ran down Daniel's spine, but the allure of the watch was too strong. He left the shop that night with Thomas's warning ringing in his ears, but the desire to possess the watch lingered. Days passed, but Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the golden timepiece. The idea of holding such power in his hands consumed him. One evening, after the shop had closed and the village had fallen asleep, Daniel crept back to the clockmaker's shop. He knew where Thomas kept the spare key, hidden under a loose brick by the door. Quietly, he slipped inside and made his way to the back of the shop, where the golden pocket watch gleamed in its case. His hands shook with anticipation as he pried open the glass case and lifted the watch from its stand. It felt heavier than he expected, as if it carried the weight of centuries. Without thinking twice, Daniel turned the dial. Suddenly, the ticking of the clock stopped. The world outside the window froze, the rain suspended midair, the trees stilled in the wind, the village trapped in a perfect moment of silence. Daniel's heart raced with excitement. He had done it. He had stopped time. At first, it was exhilarating. He could roam the village streets unnoticed, exploring every corner without interruption. School became a distant memory. He could read for hours, wander through the fields, and no one would ever know. The world was his playground, and he was its master. But the euphoria didn't last. With each use of the watch, Daniel began to feel different. He grew tired more quickly. His reflection in the mirror became pale and gaunt, dark circles forming under his eyes. The once thrilling power began to feel like a burden, and yet he couldn't stop. Every time he tried to put the watch away, the temptation was too great. He would tell himself it was just one more time, one more flick of the dial, but each time it drained a little more of his strength. Then, one day, it all went wrong. Daniel had stopped time again, this time to avoid an argument with his parents. But when he tried to restart it, nothing happened. No matter how many times he turned the dial, the world remained frozen. The people around him were locked in place, like statues. The birds in the sky hung motionless, and the breeze no longer rustled the trees. Panic set in. He ran through the village, shouting for help, but no one could hear him. Time had stopped completely, and it seemed there was no way back. Desperate, Daniel ran to the only person who might know what to do, the clockmaker. When he burst into Thomas's shop, he was surprised to find the old man unfrozen, calmly waiting for him as if he had expected this moment. "I told you not to take the watch," Thomas said, his voice filled with quiet disappointment. "Please," Daniel begged. "I didn't mean for this to happen. Help me fix it." Thomas nodded slowly. "There is a way, but it comes at a great cost." "What cost?" Daniel asked, fear tightening his throat. "To restore time, you must sacrifice your own," Thomas explained. "The watch feeds on time, and to set things right, you must give it what it wants, your remaining years." Daniel's heart sank. He knew what that meant. If he used the watch one final time to restart the flow of time, he would lose the rest of his life. The boy who once dreamed of controlling time now faced the ultimate decision: live forever in a frozen world, or give up his life to fix the one he had broken. With a heavy heart, Daniel nodded. "I'll do it." Thomas placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You've made the right choice. Time belongs to all of us, not just one." Daniel took a deep breath and turned the dial one last time. As the world around him slowly began to move again, as the rain resumed its fall and the wind stirred the leaves, Daniel felt himself fading. His body grew lighter, and before he knew it, he was gone, dissolved into the very time he had once tried to control. The golden pocket watch was returned to its case, locked away where it would wait for the next soul curious enough to seek its power. And Thomas, the old clockmaker, remained the silent guardian of its dangerous secret. The legend of the clock that stopped time, became a tale told in whispers, passed down through generations. A warning to those who dared to covet the power that could stop time, but at the cost of their own.